Releasing the Mueller Report. New details from the Attorney General about when and how much of that report could be revealed. Plus, shutting down the U.S. southern border. President Trump makes a threat again, saying he would act as soon as next week. Also ahead this hour, defeated a third time, the Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit plan gets voted down again, leaving the United Kingdom in political limbo. Live from CNN World Headquarters in Atlanta, we want to welcome our viewers here in the United States and all around the world. I'm George Howell. The CNN Newsroom starts right now. 4 a.m. on the U.S. East Coast, we could get our first look at the full Mueller report on Russian election interference in just a matter of weeks now. In a letter to Congress, the U.S. Attorney General promised that it would be made public by mid-April, if not sooner. That report is nearly 400 pages long, but here's the thing. How much of it will be revealed? How much will be redacted? That's still not known. House Democrats say that it's not good enough. Our Caitlin Collins starts us off.
President Trump giving the all clear.
I have nothing to hide.
Voicing confidence in Bill Barr after the Attorney General announced Congress will have Robert Mueller's redacted report within weeks.
I have great confidence in the Attorney General, and if that's what he'd like to do, I have nothing to hide. This was a hoax. This was a witch hunt.
Barr telling lawmakers the White House will not see the document before they do, and that Trump is deferring to him on asserting executive privilege. Despite calling the special counsel's investigation a witch hunt, Trump saved his harshest words for Mexico.
I'm very upset with Mexico.
Repeating his threat to shut down the southern border, but this time with a deadline.
There's a very good likelihood that I'll be closing the border next week, and that'll be just fine with me.
Trump warned earlier that if Mexico doesn't stop undocumented immigrants from crossing into the U.S., he'll close it down and halt all trade.
And we'll keep it closed for a long time. I'm not playing games.
The presidential threat coming days after the nation's top border official warned that a crush of asylum-seeking families has put immigration enforcement at its breaking point.
This is an unfortunate step and very challenging for our law enforcement professionals to digest.
But also one day after Trump told a crowd in Michigan that those fleeing violence and poverty are sometimes faking it.
They're all met by the lawyers, and they say the following phrase: I am very afraid for my life. I am afraid for my life. Okay. And then I look at the guy. He looks like he just got out of the ring. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. He's afraid for it. It's a big, fat con job, folks.
His first rally since the end of the special counsel's 22-month investigation.
And after 3 years of lies and smears and slander, the Russia hoax is finally dead. The collusion delusion is over.
As Trump took a victory lap around Democrats.
The Democrats have to now decide whether they will continue defrauding the public with ridiculous partisan investigations, or whether they will apologize to the American people.
The president taking delight in going after the House Intelligence Chairman in particular.
They're on artificial respirators right now. They're getting mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Little pencil neck Adam Schiff. Got the smallest, thinnest neck I've ever seen.
Now, the president has threatened to close down the border before, but he's never offered a timeline like he did today. Right now, there are still questions swirling around the White House about what this will do, because though the president today described it as a potentially profitable endeavor, it would, of course, affect businesses, factories, those communities down there on the border that cross over so frequently. And right now, the White House is not commenting on whether or not the president's threat also applies to air travel. Caitlin Collins, CNN, the White House.
And you just heard there from the Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. He says the immigration system is at a breaking point. So let's take a look now at the numbers. Immigration officials say last Monday alone, they arrested some 4,000 people trying to cross illegally into the United States. In March, around 40,000 children will come into the Customs and Border Protection custody, and the commissioner adds March will be the highest month for apprehensions and encounters since 2008. The results, he says, it sets the potential for a tragic incident. Let's get some analysis now with Natasha Lindstad. Natasha is a professor of government at the University of Essex, joining us this hour. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
Natasha, border officials are saying their resources have become strained. The U.S. president threatening also to shut down the southern border. And he had this to say about what he has been calling a crisis.
They set up these caravans. In many cases, they put their worst people in the caravan. They're not going to put their best in. They get rid of their problems. And they march up here. And they're coming into their country. We're not letting them in our country. Our Border Patrol, the job they've done is incredible. The job that ICE is doing is incredible. And we have run out of space. We can't hold people anymore. And Mexico can stop it so easily.
So, Natasha, the question here, is this a manufactured crisis, as critics have been saying, or is this a real problem that has been gradually building to now a breaking point?
Well, what Trump is saying and Republicans and his supporters is that there has been a jump in apprehensions, but Democrats would say this is a crisis of his own making, as you mentioned, because actually Mexican immigration to the U.S. has gone down. And if you look at the overall trends, immigration into the U.S. from the South have decreased. And his policies seem to be not really working in the right way. And under the Obama administration, they were able to start working on immigration reform and making it more of like a comprehensive thing. It's not really just all about just putting up borders and apprehending people, but also looking at the root causes of immigration. So Mexican immigration has gone down, but it has gone up in some Central American countries that are dealing with major crises. I mean, huge homicide rates that are making people feel very unsafe. It would be better if you tackled it from that front and looked at what the root causes of the crisis were, rather than trying to erect borders that are going to have a huge economic consequences, both on the Mexican economy and then, of course, on the U.S. economy.
I want to pivot now to another topic that we've discussed, the Mueller Report. It is expected to be released, Natasha, by mid-April, if not sooner, likely to be heavily redacted. And in this latest tweet from the U.S. president, it's important to kind of get a sense of reading the tea leaves here with his thoughts around it. Let's take a look at that tweet. The problem, he says, is no matter what the radical left Democrats get, no matter what we give them, it will never be enough. Just watch. They will harass and complain and resist the theme of their movement. So maybe we should just take our victory and say no. We've got a country to run. So people are zeroing in on that capitalized no. What does the no mean there? Is it no to harassment? Is it no to releasing the Mueller report? What do you make of it?
Well, I think he's just trying to take a very strong stance after this Mueller report has finally been released, and it probably caused him a lot of stress over the past 2 years. And he's been very vocal in saying he's been completely exonerated, that there was no collusion, and the Republicans and Trump supporters have been really angry about this, and they said this has been a complete witch hunt, and they want to be very, very just defiant and strong in the fact that they feel that it was a complete waste of time and a waste of taxpayer money. But the Democrats are concerned about Barr's report. They don't think that it was very clear that all the evidence was really put out there. And there's also concerns that whatever comes out, if there's so much that is redacted, it may be covering a lot of the information that the Democrats are suspicious about. And Adam Schiff, who is the House Intelligence Chair, made this clear in a speech he gave where the Republicans were actually pretty aggressively going after him and trying to get him to resign. And he was saying, well, I'm just not okay with a lot of things that had happened that were pretty clear. That Don Jr., his son, appeared to be pretty exuberant in an email about getting dirt on Hillary Clinton from the Russians, that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was creating back channels to meet with the Russians, had been meeting with the Russians, and that Trump himself had said in the summer of 2016, Russia, why don't you go get Hillary Clinton's emails? These were all things that were in plain sight to everybody. And so there's this suspicion that this Barr report wasn't really telling the whole picture, and that may have been biased a little bit. And they're hoping that the whole thing will come out. Trump, on the other hand, is saying, I don't care what comes out. There was no collusion. There's no proof of collusion. So he feels pretty confident that it doesn't matter.
And just adding to one thing that you mentioned there, the report does not exonerate the president. So that's important to underscore. A greater question, though, here, Natasha, will even the partial release of this report, who knows how much of it will be redacted, but will even the partial release make a difference here for Democrats?
No, I don't think it really will make a difference for Democrats. I mean, I think that they want as much of it to come out as possible because of the suspicions that I just mentioned, that they feel that pretty strongly that the Russians interfered with the U.S. election, and that there may have been some connection, cooperation going on with the Trump campaign in this process, based on how vocal they were about trying to work with the Russians, and how clearly they wanted to cooperate with the Russians and relieve the sanctions and so forth. But for the Democrats, there are all kinds of other investigations going on that actually have much more serious implications for Trump, both politically and legally. Most notably, the investigation about the campaign finance fraud and his connection with Michael Cohen in basically telling him to pay hush money to someone who he had in a relationship with. And the fact that Cohen himself had been sentenced to prison for 3 years, and that Trump was named as an unindicted co-conspirator. So that's just one of many, many different investigations that are going on that are probably going to have much more repercussions and political implications that the Democrats are going to want to pursue. This is more of an emotional thing, I think, for the Democrats. They just feel that something is fishy, something is wrong, and they don't buy that there was really much ado about nothing here. I think that's why they're really holding on to this a little bit further.
Natasha Lindstad, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So a common phrase in the British Parliament lately has been, and the noes have it. What's ahead for that country as the Prime Minister's Brexit deal fails yet again? Plus, Palestinians mark a significant milestone in Gaza, an anniversary that has the Israeli military on heightened alert. Stay with us.